This whole gospel of fasting reminded me about my favorite story of fasting here. When a friend of mine told me that she intended to give up sweets for Lent, and only to see her moments later take a bite into a donut. When I asked her why she was eating a donut if she decided to give up sweets, she said that donuts aren't sweets. It's breakfast food. So, whatever and however you decide to enter into Lent through prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, perhaps today may be a good time to explore more deeply what Jesus is trying to say in Matthew's very short gospel. The gospel is not a treatise on who fasts or who doesn't fast, nor is it about what one is supposed to eat or not eat when one fasts. Instead, it's about timing. Jesus is criticizing people who are fasting during a time of celebration. They are essentially observing funeral rituals at a wedding. And the reason why their timing or religious ritual is off is because they have no idea who is with them, that the bridegroom is with them, that the presence of the bridegroom takes precedence over all things. Remember that we're hearing St. Matthew's Gospel, and Matthew will always emphasize how God is present everywhere. God is present in Jesus, God is present in the church, God is present in the world. So to the point here, my friends, our fasting, our prayer, and our almsgiving makes no sense unless we take relationship into account. To do any less turns the practice of religion into ineffectual ritual, or strips religion of spirituality. Relationship gives meaning to ritual. Relationship, which is our theme for the day, is an interesting word when you cross-list it in the Bible, because the word relationship doesn't appear very much. We hear of people having relations, but you don't see relationship. Because at one level that makes some sense, because the word relationship did not enter our English lexicon until the 1700s. And it didn't pick up a sexual or a more intimate relationship or connotation until the middle of the 20th century. So this idea of being in relationship, as we understand in English, is relatively new. That's not to say that relationships or intimacy did not exist in the Bible. Quite the opposite. We read about friends, about lovers, about disciples, about sons and daughters. We read about communities everywhere. What makes Isaiah so compelling, as we heard in our first reading, is that we hear about a God who is passionate for his people, who cares very deeply about his people who are oppressed, who are hungry, who are homeless, who are naked, who are rejected. Their relationship is similar to kinship or blood ties, family, or the Hawaiian word would be ohana. The psalmist is able to be so bold in his plea because he can place confidence in a relationship with God who has been forgiving, just, and merciful. Remember that the God of Israel was a striking contrast to the pantheon of ancient gods who were either disinterested in people or even competitive with people. So to hear of a God who desires kinship, who speaks of us as being family, who is caring, who is in relationship, is a striking counterpoint to previous understandings of God. Jesus teaches us that religious observances make no sense or can even confuse us if we don't see our primary relationship with God first. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler's book, Life Lessons, which Father Ray and I are exploring this week, has this to say about relationships and why they're important. I quote, "Relationships offer us the biggest opportunities for learning lessons in life, for discovering who we are, what we fear, where our power comes from, and the meaning of true love." End quote. A couple years ago, Rick Hoyt, who is now 53 years old, received national attention because he competed in 1,000 races, a combination of marathons, of duathons, and triathlons. To compete in 1,000 races is pretty noteworthy. But it was more noteworthy because Rick suffers from cerebral palsy, which has rendered him unable to walk and speak except through the use of a computer. So how was Rick able to complete these races? Well, the reason why he was able to complete these races is because his father, Dick Hoyt, who is 75 years old and a 40-year veteran of the National Guard, was able to push, pull, and carry his son through those 1,000 races, including the famous Boston Marathon. When doctors told the elder Mr. Hoyt that his son should be put away into an institution because his son's situation was helpless, he and his wife Judy decided to raise him and love him like a normal boy, and even fight to admit him into a school where Rick ultimately graduated with a degree from Boston University. When professionals told Mr. Hoyt that his son would not be able to talk, he noticed that his son possessed a particular intelligence that convinced Tufts University professors to develop computer technology to help Rick express complex ideas, thereby changing the way we see people with disability. When professionals told Mr. Hoyt that his son would not be able to walk, his father developed a stroller that allowed him to push, pull, and carry his son through those races, and ultimately finishing through ticker tape, which shows us the power of a father's love, the response from a willing son, and the transformative power of loving relationship. Among us Jesuits, there is a common understanding that community living is balanced when life is vibrant around 3 tables. The living room table, where we have our newspapers and read about the world around us, where we can watch TV and recreate with one another and spend leisure time. The second table, the dinner table, where we can share stories, laugh together, support one another in our work. And God's table, the altar, the place where we nurture our relationship with Christ and support each other in our mission. When we examine our relationships today, I would encourage us to seek the extent to which our lives are balanced with those 3 tables: the living room table, the dinner table, and God's table. Do we put more energy in one over the other? If so, what would happen if we put the same amount of effort into developing each one? How could our relationships grow or be nourished? Once again, in the words of Doctors Kubler-Ross and Kessler, relationships offer us the biggest opportunities for learning lessons in life, for discovering who we are, what we fear, where our power comes from, and the meaning of true love.